good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 1st meeting of the Hyde Park Town Board. Please join me while we pledge allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of the April 17th and 21st meeting?
Make motion.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have, the first item on our agenda is a public hearing. Sorry, am I speaking too loudly? Is it okay? It seems like there's a bit of an echo. The public hearing on local law A, amending the scheduling of ZBA public hearings and area variances. So, Madam Clerk, could you please read the notice of public hearing?
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park will hold a public hearing on the adoption of proposed local law A of 2017 entitled Local Law Amending Section 108-33.5 of the Town of Hyde Park Code on Monday, May 1st, 2017 at 7:05 p.m. at the Town Hall, 4383 Albany Post Road, Hyde Park, New York. The purpose of the new local law is to add a subsection G regarding the scheduling of public hearings for area variances for single-family residences. A copy of said local law is available for review at the town clerk's office during regular business hours. All persons desiring to be heard on the adoption of said local law shall be given the opportunity to do so at said public hearing. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park, dated April 5th, 2017, Hyde Park, New York, Donna McGrogan, Town Clerk.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't know if I had a motion to open the public hearing. May I have that? Come on.
Make a motion?
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would anyone like to come on up and speak about this local law? And here's the inspiration for it.
The father of the
John
law.
Rickford, Rogers Road. I'm chair of the ZBA. I want to thank you for considering this. The intent, as everybody knows, is to try to trim a month off the schedule for minor applications to the ZBA for residential variances. This, we think, will do the trick. Summarize it real simple. If an application is complete for a residential variance that does not appear to be controversial, and the zoning administrator thinks it's complete, and I think it's complete, we'll go ahead and advertise it based on the information that we have at that time. That probably would be exactly what would happen if we were to have the entire board vote on it. The difference is that by having just the chair do it, that means as long as we can get the notice in time for the meeting, we don't have to wait an additional month for the application. We're just trying to trim the schedule. If something were wrong, if there were a problem with the application, if the measurements in the public hearing turn out to be wrong, we can always re-advertise if we have to, and we haven't lost any time from where we were before. In fact, we're probably a little ahead of the game even then. So that's the net of it. I encourage the adoption of it this evening, and thank you for your consideration. And happy birthday, Emma.
Thanks, John. So just to be clear though, basically this is just allowing the planning board chair or his designee.
Zoning board.
Zoning board of appeals chair to set the public hearing in advance of the first meeting. It's not in any way altering the other part of the process, just to and therefore saving time.
I think it's great. It's
Yeah,
save time for
I
us.
think that's great, and thank you, John, for bringing that to our attention and encouraging the adoption.
Yeah, it's great when homeowners make improvements and upgrade their homes, so we want to encourage that and make it as quick and easy as possible.
Definitely.
Were there any comments from the planning board that we needed to
There
address?
there were comments from the planning board, but they were all favorable comments.
Oh, great, perfect.
So, when I looked at it, I said, oh my God.
I would just comment, Emily, that many of the situations that come forward are people that are trying to get their property in compliance. In addition to the person who wants a new deck or a garage or things like that, many of these applications are things that have been technically violations for 10, 15 or more years. and they just need to be approved so that they can get a CO, so they can sell their house, or so they can get it, clear the problems they have with their house, so they can go forward with an addition or one thing or another. So a lot of it is just paperwork as opposed to, but
Yeah, it's great. Removing red tape and helping people get through quicker. So.
Okay, well, thanks, John. Would anyone else like to speak to this local law? Okay, then may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is a financial update by our comptroller, Tom Carey. TC, would you prefer there, or? Yeah, that's good, good. Well, thank you so much for staying late, despite your wife not feeling well. I hope she's recovering quickly.
A little scared.
Yeah.
Okay, periodically I like to give the board an update on the financial condition of the town.
Make sure you're talking right into the microphone.
Usually
Yeah.
3 times a year, so usually around this time of year in July for a semi-annual report, and usually during the budget process. So I had sent out an email, I believe, maybe at the end of January, on the preliminary closing results of the town general and highway fund. And Friday, we received the draft audit report, which verifies all our financial condition status. So I don't even believe we have a audit adjustment, but I'll know for sure when I go through the draft report. So it'll take me 3 days to go through the draft report. Right now, it agrees to our financial statements. And you should have a one-page handout. So what I'm going to do is just cover this in summary form. In the general fund, it's a summary 5-line paragraph about the results of the expenditure side of the budget, that it come in under the revised portion of the budget. And then we have a summary of the actual revenues. The actual revenues exceeded the estimated revenues by $480,000, which is considerable. The net effect of this whole general fund activity is that the fund balance grew to $1.7 million. It's the largest that I've seen on record for Hyde Park. And then since I've been here since 2012, it's the largest increase in the fund balance in the general fund. It went up approximately $474,000. So that is a great accomplishment for the town, and you are really in great financial shape. We increased the reserves for the compensated absences, knowing where we were. As far as the financial results, I increased the compensated absence reserve, and those reserves are held for future pay for retiring employees, accumulated sick liability. So we increased that by $140,000, and we also increased the reserve for capital projects and future budgets up to $316,000. We increased that by $100,000. The highway fund is the next summary. It's a similar format. The first paragraph explains basically what happened to the expenditure side of the budget. And then the middle paragraph, which is just one sentence, explains the revenue side of the budget, which I'm just going to highlight that again also. That exceeded the estimated revenue by $40,000 due to sales of salt to the county and the other government agencies that the highway fund provides salt to. In a nutshell, the highway fund balance increased about $290,000. It's up to $585,477. Because of this result, we increased the snow reserve fund, which is now up to $200,000, and we increased the compensated absence reserve in this fund by $77,000. Your combined general fund and highway fund balances is $2.3 million, which leaves both the general fund and highway fund in excellent condition. The unassigned fund balance in the general fund, we are holding 10.5%, which is basically the cap that I had recommended in your policy as being unassigned. That's a 10.5% you hold that reserve compared to your annual expenditures. So as I mentioned, these are very favorable results. The independent audit apparently will verify this when I go through their financial statements. You have a very favorable debt capacity limit. We're only using about a little under 9% of the debt capacity. The town has a debt contracted margin of 100 million, and you're only using about 9 million of that. So what that tells you is that the town has a very good provision for taking on additional debt. Most municipalities are in the 10 to 15% range. You're under 9%. So that's good for taking on additional capital projects. The mortgage tax last year exceeded our budget by approximately, I think it was 79,000. The sales tax, we got an unexpected distribution from the sales tax, so that exceeded the budget by about 100,000. And your building permits were up last year too. The mortgage tax this year in the first quarter continues to exceed budget estimate. On the negative side is that the biggest variable in the general fund is the police overtime. That's consuming about 30,000 a month from police overtime. And we're going to do a further analysis of that when I get some time.
So you said that the mortgage tax and the building permits were all up?
Up over estimated from last year.
That's great, that's nice to hear that there's, building happening and home sales happening.
Yeah, we've been conservative on the mortgage tax estimate, but apparently it seems to be increase in the mortgage tax. The annual monthly payments seem to be going up, so you have good mortgage activity.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a noticeable increase in sales and
Yeah.
activity. You can just see it when you're driving down the road.
Yeah, and I want
It's
to
nice to see that it's being reflected in the
Yeah.
revenues too. It's good all around for Hyde Park.
It is.
Right. I want to congratulate the town that an excellent, took on that excellent initiative of transferring the water and sewer assets to the county. That has worked out very favorable to the town. It has decreased some internal operations, and it's allowed us to stabilize the staffing here. So that was a very successful initiative. Just want to let you know.
Tedious, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to let you know that we're going to pursue with the bond rating agency, which is Moody's, to increase our bond rating. I'm going to try to pursue that again. And I think because of these favorable results in 3 years in a row, especially this last year, we'll let you know how that progresses. That usually takes on a little conversation between the town and the agency. So I want to also congratulate the board. I think this board is a very favorable and a very knowledgeable board to manage with finances. And in my past experience, I've had some people that have trained, but I think this board is pretty knowledgeable on financial conditions and financial analysis. So
We have a great
thank you.
supervisor that knows how to say no.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm being properly trained.
And one last thing, I'm getting more involved in the capital projects because I seem to have more time without the involvement of the special districts. I think we have a good handle on the Route 9 pedestrian improvement projects. You have a couple of resolutions tonight awarding the bid and also appropriating funds from our reserve fund for that capital project. I want to explain, even though they're bond resolutions, the bond resolutions have to be funded for the entire amount of the project. Doesn't mean we're going to borrow that. More than likely, you won't get nowhere near that amount that's in the bond resolution tonight, but that is recommended by bond counsel. Whenever you have an estimated capital project, you get a bond resolution for the full funding to cover anything that might involve, like, say, loss of a grant or something like that. So that's just a process. That doesn't mean we're going to borrow $1.1 million. And in my practice, we've always done that way too.
For that project, between I think it's 4 different grants that.
Yeah, it's
that
very,
was
it's a
able
very
to patch
involved
together.
project.
Yeah, but it covers almost the entire cost, which is really unusual. I mean, most communities, when they get those grants, they put in the match, and we were able to really patch the funds together to cover almost all of it with grants.
Yeah, you've done this town's done an excellent job on grant acquisitions and grant funding. Even though they become cumbersome, the federal grants are very cumbersome, but I have to congratulate the town on that. So I called this town, instead of Hyde Park, Grand Haven. And
Even
one
though
last
it's driving
thing,
me crazy with it.
on the budget revisions tonight, and you were all contacted that we had an increased funding for the CHIP state aid, which is good again this year. You're getting additional funding from the state for the Pave New York project and the winter aid because of that one snowstorm. So you got a total of about $270,000. I wouldn't recommend it all be used for paving. I did put an email out that we should use a portion of that to fund that South Drive culvert project, roughly 35 to 40,000. So that's all I got right now.
Did you investigate to see if that qualifies?
Yeah, anything with 10-year life.
Okay, great. Yeah.
It's, CHIPS
Send
funding
an
should
email
use
to that always.
anything where it has a 10-year life improvement.
Okay,
Okay.
that would be wonderful.
TC, the fund balance of 1.7, that number includes
All
what we put
reserves.
into like the Athens, the compensated
Yep.
and the future budgets, all that money equals that 1.7.
Yes, 670,000 or 672,000 exactly is what they call the unassigned, which is the loose money, which is you could use for any designated purposes or to control budget, increases to offset revenue sources. So we've been very good on that. This year you only appropriated $121,000 to stabilize your tax increase. Your tax increases have been minimal here the last 4 or 5 years.
That's great, because it's between, increased revenues from the building and house sales activity, which is great to see anyway, but between the increased revenue and just really watching every penny, I mean, it does add up. And now we have a nice fund balance that we can use to keep taxes stable, to make improvements to the community, and that's a really nice place to be.
It is, especially because we have a number of capital projects that are not just on the horizon, but in the process. And so it does provide a level of comfort that if we weren't in this good a condition, it would be a little bit more worrisome. But this is great.
2011, your total combined fund balances for the general highway fund were $706,000.
In 2011?
Yeah, and in 2012, $1,070,000. 2013 is $1,272,000. 2014 is $1,345,000. Last year $1,545,000, and now we over $2 million, $2,302,000. So since 2011, we've tripled the combined fund balance.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the highway was in the red, right?
It was.
It's in a nice, safe place, so that's good.
So what we do is we start utilizing some of that money and that's what we're doing, we're utilizing some of that money for capital projects as local sources, and some of that is going into the revitalization study, the pedestrian sidewalk project, and hopefully if we get that grant for the highway buildings, some of it will be appropriated there also.
Can you just explain, just in layman's terms, you talked about trying to upgrade our bond, what that actually means to our constituents?
Yeah, right now the town is rated AA2. If the county's 3A, I don't know exactly how to check into it, the highest rate you get for a local municipality of our size is 3. Right? So we're going to try to pursue that, and what they want to see is increased, and what it does is they want to see increase in fund balances, increase in reserves, stable tax growth. So that what you want to do is try to get that bond rating as high as possible, which ultimately drives down your interest debt.
So if we needed to do a bonding for roads or for some other capital improvement, we would be able to borrow at a lower rate.
Oh, it definitely
based
does.
on that. So that's great.
Well, TC, quite an accomplishment, and I have to give you and Joanne and actually the entire team a lot of credit, because it's a very active process of managing these dollars. It's not
No,
passive.
you really keep things in line, and we
And,
appreciate it.
It's not always easy. People don't always like us for that.
Not always
but-
popular.
But hey, you know what, it's really not so different from homeowners in the sense that people pinch pennies so that they can improve their houses. And that's really exactly what we're doing, and it's satisfying, and it's gonna be big changes in Hyde Park. The pedestrian improvement project is, you'll see we're awarding the bid tonight, and it looks like we'll be getting started on that this summer, and other good projects as well. So thank you, TC.
Is it a good time to bring up the,
Yes.
So we spoke a bit about this chat project that we're gonna be building this summer that's been in the works for 3 years. That'll go from the drive-in up to the CVS Plaza, the Park Plaza. And we just found out that we were awarded a second TAP project. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we'll have to figure out if we can afford the match for that one, but it's just over $1 million, and it would be to build out another section of sidewalk and pedestrian infrastructure from Park Plaza up to the Hyde Park Firehouse, which is the area that we're designing through the NYSERDA funded grant. So it's pretty exciting. I have to thank Mars Associates for their work on helping us put that application together, and we thought it was a long shot, but we took a chance and we got it. So we'll more to come on that.
Well, it's a long process because in 2012, we started with the Hyde Park walks, and we have the chairman of that is here. And so it really, for these grant applications to succeed, you really have to show a history and a dedication to it. And so really, all these projects are actually coming to fruition this year, but it's been a long process to get there.
And I think it's also the relationships that we've built, because the folks at DOT and the people that are involved in these grants know that we are trustworthy and that we do what we say we're going to do. So.
And this past Friday, we had Ron Hicks, the Deputy County Executive, giving a presentation to the mayors and supervisors on the Think Dutchess initiative. And it was really very impressive what they're doing at the county level. There's a great brochure that they've produced, a magazine that profiles all the different communities and all the different business activity. And it's really pretty inspiring to see the way Dutchess County has diversified from the time of IBM, where it was a pretty narrow and field of employment. So it was interesting to hear the questions that other supervisors ask, because really we've gotten quite a good reputation as to receive grants. And one of the other supervisors had asked Ron about, can they get some additional support for one of their grants? And Ron's response was really, well, you have to really build that history. You have to start taking actions yourself before you'll get us to really buy in. And that's something that we have done over the long term.
And he actually said, like Hyde Park.
Like Hyde Park has. So that was satisfying to hear that. So, and this is really helpful information, because in addition to the planning projects, the NYSERDA planning and the pedestrian improvements, we're really embarking on the commercial sewer district with some renewed enthusiasm and putting some pieces together for that. And, I think it's a few questions that you asked me in an email earlier today is something that we'll have to kind of go into in terms of even when we put the monies together for a sewer district, we come up with a map plan and report, there's still an entity that needs to be responsible for the borrowing. And typically that's the town or the water authority. Is that, in your opinion, the way it usually works?
It would be the town on behalf of the district.
The town, so that is.
Create a sewer district.
To create the sewer district. So that is another very important element that would be influenced by the bond rating, because it would really be based on our credit, right? So, all right, well, thank you so much, TC. And so when can we expect the?
And I want to remind you, because I started working on the sewer project. I think it was about 4 or 5 years back, they changed the legislation and even the municipal bonding, so now we can bond it after 30 years. It's now recognized as a 30-year improvement. Before it was everything was 20 years, but sewer is now recognized as 30 years.
Okay.
And also through the Environmental Facilities Corporation on the intended use plan, their subsidy is considerable, so we have to work on that. I've been involved in those type of applications before, so.
Well, we met with our grant writer last week and went over all the pieces that we have in place as far as funding and planning. And he was just thrilled to have all this material to work with on the application and felt very optimistic about it. And that's for the.
He's working on free money, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
On what?
Free money.
free money.
Yeah,
Money
yeah,
just
right,
like
right.
But the
For
loan, for example, if you get, I think right now they're running about 2%. So if the loan is 4%, you get a subsidy of 2%. So the net loan versus a public bond is considerably lower.
That's great. So on this Wednesday, the New York State Bar Association is having a program on the new water infrastructure funding and how it all works in Albany, and I'm going to go to that So I'll learn more about
There's gonna be
that.
additional funding for water and sewer.
Well, and
Yeah, there is.
Free
They
money,
put a lot-
free money and no money because of this, because of the conditions of, our infrastructure, so.
Exactly, and it's been hard for communities like ours to access because we don't have a failing sewer system, but it sounds like that might be opening up, so.
And we really campaigned with our state representatives to advocate for opening this funding stream up to new infrastructure, because as Emily said, it's prior only addressed water quality issues or
Mhm.
failing sewer systems, so that hopefully is going to be materializing. I did call Senator Serino, who indicated to me that she thinks that there will be some funds available. She didn't know the funding source, but we'll definitely be looking to her for any type of grant funding that she can bring to the table. But I think the important piece is that we are, patching these other places, other funding sources together, coming up with a viable plan, and then being able to list this newer project on the IUP and increase our total funding status.
Well, that's the only way to really get a project is to have a solid plan that meets the criteria and is on the IUP. So that's what the NYSERDA grant is enabling us to produce, that plan that'll get us in line for whatever funding is available.
So just back to the audit for just a minute. It's the Bonadeo Group who is doing it this year, and that's going to be interesting to see if it offers some additional insights. I was part of the committee. We have an audit committee.
Yeah, they will review, after they get done with the draft, and then, because I already see these things have to be adjusted in there, how they're presenting it, then we'll get another draft, which will go to the committee, the audit committee. We will meet with them. And then when they accept it, they'll make they'll make a recommendation to the board to accept the report. Then you'll have a presentation by the audit.
That's good, and new component was a more thorough exploration of our IT protections, so that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that. It might be a separate report.
It might be separate, yeah, so, but well done, TC, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming and giving us the report.
Would you like that?
Yeah,
Thank you.
hope Pam feels better. Okay, no, she can't eat anything, actually.
Next topic just makes Emily all happy.
I know. So our next item on the agenda is the MS4 report, and we have Andy Learn and Tad Moss here to inform us on the status of our drains.
Stand over there, you can't, I'm sitting over here.
I'll
Yeah, sit there. Yeah, have a seat.
you. That just took control. You can stand here, but I'm going over here.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi,
Welcome.
we're here again, it's our annual thing,
A whole year has gone by.
and we actually get credit for doing this presentation. So it's a good thing to do. We started our annual reporting in 08-09 season, so we've been doing this for a while. It starts on a March 10th and it ends on a March 9th, so it's kind of an odd cycle. Basically, it addresses non-point source pollution and through stormwater management. Last year, you adopted changes to the local law for updates that needed to be done. This year, we anticipate higher priority for outfall inspections, and we should be updating the stormwater management plan, which is basically a flow chart. So if I leave or if Walt leaves, we know who's responsible for doing what in the program. Anybody can go to the shelf and pick the book up and get the forms and do whatever you need to do. Conceptually, it controls erosion and the movement of sediment off property and into water bodies. And the program has 6 minimum measures that we have to report on annually. The first is public education, and the second is public involvement. These are done primarily through the MS4 committee in Dutchess County. We distribute information. The committee sponsors seminars and trainings. For involvement, that's where people go out and do stream cleanups and roadside cleanups. Trees for Tribs is in that. The watershed groups are involved in that part. The third minimum measure is illicit discharge detection and elimination. Primarily, it's failing septics in our town. We don't have a whole lot of industrial waste that's possibly connected to storm drains. Mostly, it's a response to complaints. We have an agreement with the Department of Health as to how it gets investigated and who resolves it, who's responsible. We actually had one last year. We had one reported last year that was resolved. It was an open septic tank. Somebody actually fell into it. It wasn't good.
I can only imagine.
And it was taken care of fairly promptly. The fourth measure is mostly done through the town engineer's office, and I'll let Andy talk about his input into the process.
Okay, so Ted's done most of the work so far. I'm just going to kind of explain to you our role, which is mostly in the construction site planning and then management phase. Our main avenue to get involved in these projects is through the planning board. Generally, projects that disturb more than 1 acre of soil will require us to get involved to review, because they'll require a permit from the state. There are other projects that Ted will bring us in on if she has questions, but that's the general rule. There's some other caveats where, it could be more, residential projects, for example, are allowed a little bit more disturbance. But in general, what we'll do, there's basically two phases. There's the what's called post-construction controls, which is involved in controlling the amount of water that leaves the site after it's developed, making sure that it's the same, or roughly the same flow rate as it was before it was developed. And there's also some water quality type practices and requirements that have to be installed, as well as actually some means of reducing the actual volume of runoff. When you add impervious pavement to a project, that actually increases the amount of runoff that exits the site. So the state has new requirements where it's actually requiring you to put water back in the ground to try to reduce that amount of water. So what we do is we look at the state requirements as well as the town requirements to make sure that they're satisfied for post-construction control. But there's also, and sometimes a little bit more critically, is the construction phase control, where we have soils exposed and there's a potential for real release of sediment. So what we do is we'll look at the erosion controls, things like silt fence, sediment traps, inlet protection for catch basins. And we make sure that that plan is at a level that we feel is comfortable that it will protect the area, local streams, discharge points, before planning board approval is granted or a town permit is approved. After that, we also stay involved during construction. The applicant is required to prepare weekly inspection reports, which we will receive. We review and we make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that what's installed is matching the plans, and if there's any changes that need to be made, we make sure that they happen.
Andy, can I just ask you a question? Does that happen on every site plan, or only when it's over a certain threshold?
Only when it's over a certain threshold. The town does have requirements for erosion controls. I believe it's for all projects. But mainly it's over an acre that is the biggest concern. So,
I love how you just explained that all in English.
That was really good.
done a lot.
No, it's interesting.
So that pretty much sums up what we do to make sure that the MS4 requirements are
Does the
satisfied.
state set all the standards, or some of them are set by the town locally?
Yes, the state sets the standards. The town has the option to increase the requirements, but for the most part, it's pretty much what the state requires. So I'll turn it back over to Ted.
Good.
As part of that, sometimes we get into enforcement and administrative actions. There have been cases where we have had to do stop work orders for various projects. We've not had to go to court yet. We've been able to resolve things before it got to that point. But we are fairly active in watching over the sites to make sure that the town doesn't end up with a violation from DEC.
Well, it is something that we do get calls from neighbors on, and so I think it's very important to be active early on in the control, because, I mean, it can really damage your property if you have a lot of runoff from a neighbor, so it's good that you do that.
And so this year, the program's been active for a while. This year, I'm focusing on going through the old plans and seeing what post-construction agreements are for information that developers are supposed to send to the town. Whether they've maintained their sediment basins, when they fill up to a certain point, they have to be cleaned out.
And do they provide documentation
They're
to you?
supposed to. They're supposed to have their engineer inspect once a year, and then every 4 years, DEC requires that the town can ask for that information and it can be provided to us. So that's what I'm starting to go through now, is going through all the old plans and identifying what the measures were, what those separators are that are underground chambers that need to be checked every once in a while for volume and capacity. So I'm having fun walking down memory lane.
Hopefully they're all good memories.
And the sixth minimum measure is pollution prevention and good housekeeping, and it doesn't only apply to homeowners, which we cover in public education and involvement, but it also applies to town properties and town divisions. The recreation department is responsible for their own pollution prevention, good housekeeping measures, as is the highway department. So this year, we really have to kind of make sure that that's happening. A lot of the things that the recreation department handles, they really don't handle fertilizer, they don't handle pesticides, they don't handle any of a lot of the things that grounds management involves. So that's a good thing. It makes it a lot easier. The highway department, we have some activity coming up at the highway department, I believe, some changes that we're going to be working on for grading around the outside of the building, and I think at that time, Pete and I are going to review some things that we may be able to do in terms of stormwater to make things better at that existing site.
So whose responsibility is it to examine the drains that exist on the roads?
We haven't done a detailed discussion in the stormwater management program plan yet. Other towns are organized a little differently as to whose responsibility it is. Right now, the only person, I don't know how to say this, I go out and do what I can. And Peter's gonna,
Who is it in most other towns?
it's the highway superintendent.
Oh, they go and they examine.
And it's part of, it should be part of infrastructure management, and is it the Gatsby system? What is that system that the accountants
Oh, the
use?
Gatsby?
Yeah, to
Mhm.
manage infrastructure.
Oh, they have a program for that through Gatsby?
Gatsby should involve storm drains and pipes and all that stuff.
Okay.
It was my understanding initially that that's how other communities got into managing or identifying those resources for the town. And then they needed to be inspected regularly and updated as necessary. So, ditch maintenance is also highway department, and, I don't know how much we do. I don't know how much is needed in our town. So there's some things that we need to work through in the stormwater management plan that will identify who's responsible for what reporting. Does the information come to me and I submit it to DEC, or does the highway department do the annual report? Does the town engineer do the annual report? Those things all need to be worked out in the SWIM. And that's all I have, and I have, we will set the public hearing for 2 weeks,
Okay,
so that you can sign it by June 1st, and we can send it off to DEC.
okay. So the public hearing is on the actual report that you have just described to us. And so we'll need to put that on our website. And
It's on the website, it's been on the website since April
Oh, okay.
17th or something.
So you would like to set a public hearing for,
15th, I think it's in the
that
resolution.
was in the resolution, okay, good.
I just wanted to make an observation, our planning board chairman is here tonight, and it just occurred to me as Andy was going over all that, you know, the planning board has such a diverse job to do. I mean, besides just looking at a project and what the applicant's asking for and what the neighbors' concerns are, that's the first step, but then all the elements of town law that we think about. But then there's also these overlays of state law that you have to apply also as you're going through the process. So between the stormwater regulations and the seeker requirements, and there's just so many different layers of requirements that you need to help applicants get through. And I know that's a big part of what you do, is just kind of organizing and facilitating them to get through all those different elements.
Now, are those typically part of seeker? The referrals in terms of the?
The stormwater is
The
separate from,
stormwater.
but I mean, it can interact in different ways, I'm sure Andy could
Mhm.
speak to that, but I mean, for each project, I'm sure you kind of organize how to make sure you get through all those steps to get to the end.
Yeah, a lot of coordination.
I can speak if you want me to.
Do you want to? Yeah, yeah.
Let me join
please.
in.
Yeah, please. I mean, because you're an integral part of this process.
It's been a learning process, it still is, I always say. The question of stormwater being part of seeker, I didn't realize it, but it's not really. If it's over an acre, you're going to get the stormwater pollution prevention plan permit, and there's going to be a plan that's going to be adhered to. But there have been times when we've held off making the environmental quality review decision because stormwater is so important that it's driven project changes. And once that happens, you really don't want to do the neg deck in advance because you don't really know what the consequences are of all those project changes. So, and to Emily's point, yes, when I think everybody joins the planning board, they do so because they want to help the town. They think we're going to get pretty buildings and sidewalks and landscaping. And before you know it, you have infinite knowledge of sewer systems, stormwater, non-point source pollution, pre and post development, runoff rates, how to not channelize the water, get it infiltrated back in the ground. But these are all things that the state has done that are making things better, I think, for everybody. It's, in essence, Councilman Maureen is from Ward 3, where we have some of our worst flooding issues, and you represent Statsburg, the hamlet, where we have some of those as well. All of these things are designed to ensure that in the future we don't have those problems, so residents just don't have to go through this stuff. So it may take a little longer at the beginning now, at the outset. What it means is that the product that you're going to merge with, whether it's a building, a commercial building, or a whole subdivision, it's going to last a lot longer without being burdensome to the town, so the taxpayers don't have to pick up the bill. And at the same time, it's going to make residents who live in these places or shop, business owners who own them, happier too. The other thing to add is that we're aware, as the state has required more and more greener stormwater management practices, and again, this is a good thing. I attended a conference last year where basically they more or less warned elected officials and appointees like myself that there might be a looming danger on the horizon, and that's because highway departments who typically handle, like Tad said, inspection of stormwater drains because they're part of the highway system or the road network system. The highway superintendents and their staff are really more mechanics and understanding the equipment and the plowing and that sort of stuff. They're not really into how are those plants need to be thinned that are in that bioswale. So it's been our practice now when we have subdivisions that we're going to create drainage districts, which means that there's an HOA, Homeowners Association, I'm going to get out of the acronyms. And as a consequence, that way, if there's work that needs to be done, instead of again being borne by all the taxpayers of the community, instead it's borne by the people who are affected by that area right there.
Well, I can absolutely affirm that's the appropriate response or approach, because our first year, I think we had to spend about $30,000 improving the drainage are making repairs to the drainage system on Mansion Drive, which was a very small subdivision that was approved, and there was an issue with the drainage that was impacting the water line. So the town really had to step in and spend a lot of money to rectify that. So I think that's a totally sensible approach.
It's also just, there are now companies that, again, when there are changes made at the state level, that always creates to some a burden, but to others an opportunity. And by that I mean, yes, the highway staff, department staff in most municipalities is not trained to know that there are certain plants that wick up moisture and that you occasionally have to go through in your bio detention ponds and replace plants, thin them out, etc. The companies have sprung up that specialize in this. So we have an HOA, you would just contract with that group who would come in and make sure that everything is done correctly.
So what percentage of projects are using that type of green infrastructure?
90% of them.
I think
90% of them, because
Wow,
that's what the state is pushing for.
wow. So the drain in the parking lot is becoming an obsolete feature?
They're trying to make that happen, yes. I mean, you can't get away from it completely.
That's why we put it secondary. In other words, again,
Wow.
you don't want to take your water and just dump it someplace else, even if it's got less sedimentation and turbidity. You still want to be able to get the water back in the ground. So that's the primary goal. And once it's there, you don't want it to just sit and be mucky. So that's the purpose of some of these plants that help wake up the moisture as well. And then send it back out through enviro. Just
So a lot of the intent is to filter the first flush of water that goes off the site, because that's when you're washing off
Right.
all the dirt and oil and
Oils
everything on
and-
the ground. So you really want to filter that and clean it so that it's not dumping all that stuff into the streams. But then the additional water that comes after that, it's not as important. That's
So,
about right.
so when
That's right.
someone comes in to do a redevelopment on a current use, but they're redeveloping it into a different use, they would comply with all these new features? Or is that kind of a dance?
Redevelopment projects are a little different,
Oh,
because the state, I think, recognizes that you want to see redevelopment. They aren't as strict with the stormwater requirements for those
because
types
it
of
just seems like
projects.
it would be very difficult to adapt a already developed parcel into green infrastructure, because I would imagine that takes significantly more space. And no, not necessarily.
I mean, there's things like green roofs and, you know, small or pervious pavement. There are different things you can do that don't necessarily take more space.
Interesting.
What the state is looking for with redevelopment projects is any kind of improvement,
Okay.
Even
Yeah.
though
Better than
the
it
projects will,
Okay.
projects will get
That's
credit just
sensible.
for, projects will get credit for just for removing pavement. They get, that's an improvement. Changing
Interesting.
pavement to grass, they can.
Cool.
a good example, by the way, is Mavis. We anticipate concluding the environmental review, doing a secret determination at our meeting in 2 days. And then once they get their variances, assuming they receive the variances from the ZBA, we're looking to conclude the entire project, our review, at our first meeting in June. But in that case, it's less than an acre, it's, I think, 0.7. And that's a long developed site with really ancient technology. As I like to tell people, the septic system they have there is sand filter, which is like using an abacus to count instead of a calculator. No jack. But its replacement would be very expensive, and it's a tightly designed site. So, but anyway, they're going to get some credit because they are taking the existing footprint and actually shrinking the building somewhat as it moves west, and adding planting material in through there. And there's a section at the end of the building that, even though they're not required to, because it's redevelopment of an existing site that really needs redevelopment, Tad and Pete and the applicant's engineers are working on doing some green technology for the stormwater management behind the building, where there's already a little, grassy area. Just to make sure that we get something better than what we had before. And not just better in the way this building's gonna look and the way the plaza's gonna look, but also in terms of our stormwater management.
By the way, could you ask them when they're here, we've had a number of complaints about the graffiti in the building. Would you just ask them if they would kindly attend to that?
I will.
Okay, thanks. We'll take advantage of an opportunity, you know? I mean, but that's the kind of things that people care about. It's really hard for a resident to get impassioned about the stormwater. But I get a lot of calls about things like graffiti.
Yeah, I can imagine. Believe me, when I first joined the board, I kept thinking, oh, stormwater, that's for Pete, that's for the engineers. But the DEC gradually has actually required planning board members to take more training in this and understand what we're doing, and we do.
I mean, I'm someone who barely passed earth science, and I actually find it interesting. I really do now. It's amazing how your mind can change.
Well, I go into Rhinebeck after storms when I'm parking in the middle of town, and I think, that's storm management, because there's puddling all around the area. And my first thought is, I gotta show you proof, and I think, stop, get off the...
I know, like, yeah, calm down.
You should have seen me in San Francisco with all the hills. I'm like, kids, where is all the stormwater going? And they're like, oh my God.
You become dirty about it, it's true.
It's pretty interesting, you gotta admit. Right, Andy? It's interesting.
Oh, it is. Very.
Okay, well, thanks so much. I know this was a very stimulating discussion for all of us. And I cannot wait for the public hearing. I know people are coming out in droves.
We're gonna have
This room's gonna be filled.
It'd be nice if they did.
Yeah.
Might learn something.
Okay,
I'll get your
good. All right, well, thanks. And Andy, definitely, thank you so much for your help on the grant. Okay, so we have, today is our first meeting of the month, so we have public comment on resolutions as well as any issue of town business. And I don't see anybody in the audience, so.
Anyone want to comment on any issue?
Yeah, anyone who's here?
No? Okay.
Doesn't sound like it.
Michael, did you have a comment of any kind?
Yes.
Oh, okay, well, that's what we're
I'm
doing right
calling
now,
for
so
the-
come on up.
Comments.
I'm sorry, wait, on resolutions.
We're doing-
Oh, no, I'm gonna do both, because there's so few people here. We'll just condense it into one public comment session.
Well, first, I was waiting for the public hearing. I thought it'd last longer on the ZBA law. The planning board did recommend positively on it, and I'm glad you're doing that, because again, it's just a simple thing that will help residents who, for the most part, many of them don't know they need the variance, and they have to wait 2 months if they've already lined up a contractor. It's a better thing. The other thing I wanted to comment on was, there have been some sort of funny email postings about the pedestrian improvement project that's about to go underway. And most of them are like, it's sidewalks to nowhere. And I just need to comment as someone who's been now involved and trained for 12 years in the planning process, there really is only so much businesses can do. If you've noticed, the ones that have improved their sites, the exteriors, get tenants pretty quickly. And the planning board, we work with them to, again, add sidewalks, make landscaping better, et cetera. But there are whole sections of town that aren't going to come into the planning board for a while, and we're not going to get the chance to redo Route 9. So what government can do is to create the appropriate infrastructure where businesses want to come in and invest, and they do that by seeing curb appeal. And so what I keep thinking of is this isn't just more sidewalks, this is actually a transformation of what is in effect our Main Street. We know we have a Main Street right here, but Route 9 is our commercial center. It's our commercial Main Street. 9G is also a commercial center. If we can get both of the discrete sections of these, the real central area, looking good, functioning well, so that visitors can stop, park, walk it away, and I don't just mean walk on a nice wide sidewalk, but see benches, see better lighting, see better landscaping, find what they call pedestrian refuge under a tree, or you're crossing a street. These are all things that ultimately help the businesses too. I just want to make sure that that's somewhere on the record. And last, I wanted to thank you guys for publicizing what went on, or what we reviewed when we were trying to get emergency one to help them move to the former Pete's Famous. At the very beginning, we warned them that there was a apparent problem with the big stormwater drain underneath, and they didn't investigate it until after it was approved, and then discovered that it's a lot more costly than what they thought. But at least we now know moving forward that that problem is on the site, so we can definitely tell any future tenant, you need to get this investigated first if it hasn't already been corrected. And in the meantime, we have emergency one here for another 5 years. They will be looking to expand, so with luck, we'll have them someplace a little bit bigger fashion again in the future. They were just facing the lease problem, so thanks again.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you for really pointing that out about how the sidewalks really do have an economic development quality to them. And just to illustrate, I was buying some wine for my husband tonight, and because I'm not drinking, but so I made a special trip up to Bourbon Street, which is very convenient for me, and had a really nice conversation with the proprietress there. And she was just saying that, you know, she really decided to improve her building because we were improving the sidewalks, and that was just, and I think that the point of that story is that investment in sparks additional investment. And so if what we can do is contribute to the public spaces, then hopefully what we will do is inspire the business owners to contribute to the private spaces. And so in that sense, it really is even a public-private partnership.
Heck, to have $1 million landscape, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we're ready to go forward on the resolutions, so let the birthday girls start.
Sorry, I'm getting them together here. Resolution 511 of 2017, resolution scheduling a public hearing on the 2016-17 MS4 permit annual report.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 5-1-2 of 2017, resolution accepting a donation from the Hyde Park Lions Club and the Hyde Park Knights of Columbus for Hyde Park Recreation Music in the Park.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And if there's any other businesses that would like to contribute, we'd be more than happy to accept.
Sure. It's actually a pretty expensive endeavor for the town.
It is.
It's about $7,500
Yeah.
that we pay for the music.
It's a wonderful series, and you know, the town residents love it, and
We are not any longer receiving this substantial donation that we had for a few years, so the burden does fall primarily on the town for that, but we're grateful for any contribution anyone is willing to make.
Resolution 5-1-3 of 2017, resolution appointing Nicole Nokius to the Recreation Commission for a term expiring on November 30th, 2022.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. So glad Nicole stepped up, especially with the experience she has with her kids participating in swimming, since we're going to be researching a new pool,
Yes,
so that's great.
exactly.
Resolution,
Oh, I'm
well,
sorry.
sorry.
Who's turn is it me? I'm just talking too much. Resolution 514 of 2017, resolution appointing Robert Babcock to the Recreation Commission for a term expiring on November 30th, 2018.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Now, Resolution 5-1-5 of 2017, a resolution authorizing the issuance of a $1,120,000 bonds of the town of Hyde Park, Dutchess County, New York, to pay the cost of the construction of sidewalks along Route 9 in and for said town.
And second, and Donna, can you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Svensson.
Aye.
Councilman Marine.
Aye.
Councilman Schneider.
Aye.
Supervisor Rohr.
Aye.
And as TC explained this, I think this wraps previous funding
It does.
resolutions all into one package so that it's easier to show each funder that we have funding for the other pieces of the project, but really it's patching together a lot of,
Yeah, and we'll be repealing,
Right.
that's the proper term, the former issued resolutions. We'll be negating those because, as Emily explained, we're wrapping it all up into one, just for simplicity's sake. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. We're
You know,
almost
what's
there.
really exciting, and I talk a lot about this, you know, I'm on Route 9 a lot, and I do a lot of jogging in the morning with a bunch of guys. What's great about this, and I really have to give credit to Supervisor and our deputy, going out and getting these grants means that we took tax money from other communities, where in years past, all of our taxes, those grants went to other municipalities that improved their infrastructure or improved the looks of their town. And I'm just so excited that we're actually going to be a recipient and really have really nice landscape here in Hyde Park. So congratulations. I'm really excited to see a shovel on the ground for this. So,
Yes.
Nice
good
job.
stuff.
yeah, I was actually talking with a one of the local pastors over the weekend, and he was asking about the sidewalk projects, and I was saying, oh, it's important for economic development and attracting investment, and he said, well, it's also just important so that people can walk safely. The people who live in this community can walk around on sidewalks and crosswalks and have the proper ramps so that you can push a baby carriage or roll a wheelchair. For all members of the community to be able to get around safely on foot is it's important in itself, in addition to all the other elements.
Congratulations, that's a.
Well, there must have been a former initiative back like in the late 60s or early 70s, because I remember when I was a teenager, there really weren't any sidewalks. And so you'd kind of schlep along on the side of the road, and really, truly, very unsafe, so.
Okay, resolution 51-6 of 2017, resolution approving budget revisions to the town of Hyde Park for the period of April 2017, budget revisions number 2017-04.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And I just want to point out, on the fourth item down, the tree removal, that we had to take monies from the fund balance to move into, the contingency, excuse me, not the fund balance, to complete the tree removals at Mansion Drive, and that's going to probably end up being about a $30,000 to $35,000 project. And I know I've had some calls from the residents that are anxious to see that project finalized and resolved, as I am. But we're following the process. We have to obtain bids to comply with our procurement policy. So I just asked for residents' patience, and I had a very nice conversation with Luigi Coppola at the Bourbon Street. It was and where he, really expressed his understanding for the magnitude of this process, and that the town is really doing the best they can to accomplish it affordably. So.
Well, I know you've personally been on Craigslist and calling contractors and doing everything to try to get some prices in and get it done.
Yeah, we're almost there, so patience is required.
Yeah.
Resolution 517 of 2017, resolution authorizing revised total estimated costs for the Route 9 pedestrian improvement project and authorizing appropriation of funds from the designated reserve in the general fund.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1 through 8 of 2017. Resolution authorizing the town of Hyde Park to award the Hyde Park, New York State Route 9 pedestrian improvements, town of Hyde Park, Dutchess County, PIN 8761-23, contract to A. Colarusso and Son Incorporated.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
This doesn't need a roll call, does it?
No.
Okay.
Not only were they the low bidder, but they come highly recommended, so I'm looking forward to
Yeah, and they're
getting
anxious to get
underway.
going.
And resolution 51-9 of 2017, resolution revising wage rates for seasonal recreational employees.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 5110 of 2017, resolution adopting local law A of 2017, adding a new subsection G regarding the scheduling of public hearings for area variances for single-family residences.
Second.
And Donna, could you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Svensson.
Aye.
Councilman Marine.
Aye.
Councilman Schneider.
Aye.
Supervisor Rohr.
Aye.
Resolution 51-11 of 2017, resolution approving a request from Regina Chaley Church to conduct a fireworks display on Saturday, June 10, 2017.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And we already did the public comment section. I just want to give a little update on the nuisance party law that we discussed. Last week I was at the Village of Tivoli's Town, our Village Hall, where I was asked to come up and talk about the transfer of our water districts, water and sewer districts, because Tivoli is contemplating the same thing. So I did have a quick opportunity to ask the mayor how well the law has worked, and he gave it very favorable review, and said that it was the first law he passed, and it's really been tremendously helpful for his village. So I'll give him a call next week to see if there's any other greater detail he could provide to us, but he was pretty enthusiastic about it, so I think we should move ahead on it.
Okay, if you want,
Yeah.
I'll start working on it.
Yeah, good, good. Okay.
Just to announce that the Statsburg Road Ramble is this weekend, and I think they still had, last I checked, they still had a little bit of space, so if anyone's interested, they can call the Statsburg Library, and it's a great way to see hidden places in Hyde Park that you never would have thought of. So, yeah.
And I'm not sure when the filings are required for the Memorial Day Parade, but that should be on forms should be on our website. That's always, we have great turnout for that, so if anyone is interested in marching, they should obtain a form and send that into the rec department. And we also have our townwide tag sale coming up. Do you know the date of that?
This weekend, yeah,
This
it's
weekend.
this Saturday and Sunday.
This weekend, yeah.
So I think the map will probably be on the town website when they get it completed.
When they have, I think what they're doing is they're not doing a map.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They're just doing a list of
Okay.
the homes that are participating.
Okay.
And they'll put it up on Facebook, and we'll put it up on Facebook and put it on the website, probably on Friday. Okay, so with that, I may ask for a motion to adjourn,
I make a motion.
and a second,
Second.
and all in favor?
Happy birthday, Debbie.
Yeah.